Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dream Business, Dream Life. Now, I'm constantly being asked why I walked away from my e-commerce business, why I didn't work my magic and change it so that it no longer was a monster, it was no longer a business that drained my life. And I get why I'm asked that question because that's what I help other people do. I help other people to make changes to their business or to build a business that they love so that they can fall back in love with their business. But my reason was simply, I was done. I had no fight left in me and I couldn't see an alternative. So today I thought, do you know what? I'm going to dive into this a little bit more. I've never really explained it in detail. I've never really expanded on it a great lot. And I figured if people keep asking me, then people want to know more. So this is the first time I've opened up about some of this more stuff. This is the first time that I've probably told anybody some of this stuff. So buckle up, buttercup, as they say, because I've got no idea where this is going to go. Okay, let's go back to December 2009. And I was sat at the hospital bedside of my youngest daughter for 16 days. I felt totally guilty and totally worthless. My guilt came from not being able to go to work to help with the crazy, and yes, it was pretty crazy Christmas rush. And it also came from the fact that I was thinking about work when all I should have been thinking about at that time was Emily. My worthlessness came from the fact that I couldn't make my daughter better. I couldn't take away a pain, but it also came from the fact that I couldn't help at work. Instead of being there, me, the strong one that kept all of the pieces moving normally, I was totally worthless. No help to anybody. And deep down, I knew right then that the business was not giving me the one thing that I wanted when I launched it back in 2006. It wasn't giving me the freedom. This business was the biggest ball and chain ever. It's why I called it a monster business. But as soon as Emily was well enough and back at school, the old routine kicked back in. I was back to working long hours, putting work first, and pretending that everyone is perfect and pretending that everything was perfect. Now, if you've read my book or listened to the episode where I share my story, you know what happens next. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing again. Instead, I'm going to go to some of the key points that will help me to explain why I walked away. The reality here was I was more afraid of what would happen if I admitted I wasn't happy than if I kept up the pretense, if I kept pretending everything was okay. I was comfortable pretending I was okay. I was afraid to change. And you know what I say all of the time? That if you don't change anything, nothing changes. So for me, for as long as I was pretending I was okay and I was comfortable pretending I was okay, nothing was going to change. So let's fast forward a little bit and let's go to 2016. At this point, I'm slowly starting to turn a corner in terms of my mental health. I can finally start to see some of the things my life is missing more clearly. One of these things was people. The only people I saw were my hubby, my kids, and the grandkids, of course, and my team at work. Now, the problem wasn't these people. I loved all of those people dearly. The problem was the conversations were all the same. They were all work. And when they weren't, they were still work, really. They were about how I could fit anything in at home around work, or how I couldn't do something because of work, or where can we go on holiday to make sure that I've got decent access to Wi-Fi? Or when can I go that means that I'm not going to have to work 24/7, where I can minimize the work a little bit? So the conversations were always about work somehow, even when they weren't, even when they were supposed to be conversations about being at home. Now, at this point, I made a decision that looking back was probably the final nail in the coffin. I decided to open a shop. Now, my reason for opening the shop wasn't the right reason. I opened the shop so I could see people, People that didn't want to talk to me about stock, warehousing, pricing, finances, websites, or anything else, e-commerce for that matter. Just people that wanted to tell me what they had for dinner and to talk balloons and party with me, to talk about the happy occasions that were going on in their lives. People that didn't give a hoot what was going on behind the shop door. And behind the shop door, by the way, was the warehouse, because the shop I opened within a piece of the warehouse. Now, I love that shop in so many ways. I love my customers. I love the fact that I got to work with Becky, because Becky came and worked in the shop with me. But it was hard work. Now, it made money, but I took my foot off the pedal with the e-commerce business. So yes, the shop was making money, but actually the e-commerce business was probably losing more money than it could have made because of the time and effort that I was putting into the shop. So strategically, it was a bad decision. And then personally, it meant I had another job to do, another tie, another to-do list, and yeah, more staff and more stock to manage. So personally, it's a bad decision too. Now, I had money coming in, but my desperation to be happy resulted in me spending it really quickly. I could probably spend it, takeaway probably, I could spend it quicker than it came in. So cash flow started to become a problem for the first time ever. Yes, there was lots coming in, but there was lots going out. And I think that's something really important to note here. Just because people have a lot of money coming in doesn't mean that there's a lot of money left in the pot at the end of the time. So suddenly this cash flow became another stress for me to add to the list. So by 2019, we decided it was time to downsize the e-commerce business a little. We decided it was time to consider closing the shop. Now, I knew that downsizing the business meant I had to get a handle on my spending. And you know what? I actually felt relieved that some of this stuff I was buying for the sakes of it. So by downsizing, it means I can no longer do that. I could take away this. I think it was an addiction. I actually think I got addicted to spending. The spending was more about what I looked like externally than it was about what I actually wanted. And let me give you an example of a typical year in the life of Emma. In one particular year, I bought a villa in Spain, a top of the range Mercedes, paid for a lovely wedding abroad, my wedding, don't regret it at all, a new kitchen, as well as a 5-star trip to New York, and goodness knows what else. Some other unneeded, unnecessary things. The spending was totally out of control. So we closed the shop in January 2020, but little did we know that COVID was about to hit the UK. So downsizing the e-commerce business became a little bit of a pipe dream once again. And we got swept away with the endless orders, the crazy amounts of stock coming in and out of the warehouse, and actually the thrill of seeing that money rolling in. So fast forward to Christmas 2020, and enough was enough. The decision was, we are going to close 75% of this business down, and we're going to do this by reducing suppliers. If we get rid of a big chunk of the suppliers that we deal with, it's going to be easier to manage, because that's what we wanted, something easy to manage. We wanted to make enough money to see us through for, at the time, another 9 years. Then we would be in a position to retire, head off to Spain regularly, have fun with the grandkids, and live happily ever after. And this was the first time, I think, that in all the years we had been running that e-commerce business, that the decision was strategic, a decision that made sense. Now, yes, some might see it as a bit of a knee-jerk decision. And yes, it was a very, very quick decision, but it felt right. There was strategic thinking behind what we were going to do. Now, in 2020, the business turned over around £1.2 million, but I worked every single day from mid-January right through to December the 24th, Christmas Eve. I ate at my desk when I remembered. I mauled huge boxes of stock in and out of the warehouse at all sorts of times of the day. I spent time begging suppliers for stock, and I worked until I was so tired I couldn't talk or even put one foot in front of the other. The kids and the grandkids would have to pop into the warehouse to say hello, because that was the only way they would get to see us. And my youngest daughter was so lonely at home that she made a decision to move in with her boyfriend. So I felt all of those feelings again. All of those feelings that I felt back in 2010 when Emily was in hospital. I felt worthless and I felt guilty. What good was all of this money coming in if I was having to give everything up to make it happen? I absolutely hated 2020, but for very different reasons to most. Now, looking back, the year probably flew by. It was such a long year, though, and a year that I hated with a passion. So living in it was slow, but I'm sure it flew by. I was exhausted, physically and mentally exhausted. There was no fight left in me. I just needed it all to go away. And I realized at that moment that I could make it go away. It was within my control. The business wasn't being forced upon me, I was forcing it upon me. So we came into 2021 with this plan, and I'm an action taker. So when I've got something in my head that I want to do and a decision has been made, I act fast. So we implemented this plan really, really quickly. And by March 2021, which is really, really quick for what we did, we actually self-fulfilled our very last order. And that was it, warehouse closed. The remaining sort of 25%-ish of the business, we outsourced to FBA, which is fulfilled by Amazon. So now the business is no longer in control. I am now in control of this business. But I realized quite quickly that this 25% that we'd got was still too much. This business had mentally scarred me so much that I needed it gone. But getting rid of it completely meant we have no income coming into our house because this was the only income we had coming into our family. But it had to happen. So gradually this 25% dropped to 20, then 15. And then March 2023, Becky got her cancer diagnosis. And at that point, there was never even any thought about it. We just completely stopped right there and then in that moment. No stock from that point came in and out of our warehouse. Now we're in November 2024 now, and the business is still not completely closed. It's like one of those annoying, those annoying sniffles that you can't get rid of. That's that business. But you know what was so close? There's just one teeny little thing to sort, which should be sorted in the next couple of weeks. And then all systems go, formal closure. And I'm going to have the biggest party ever, even if it's just me and the Prosecco. So let's go back to the original question. I hated the business so much, I simply didn't want to try. I didn't want to find a way to make it work. I just wanted it closed, and no amount of money made it worth even considering. I had made the mistake of leaving it too late. What I should have done is make changes to the business many, many years ago. When I started to get those niggles, that's when I should have started to look at making some changes to the business. I should have brought somebody in to help me, somebody who wasn't as mentally scarred by the business as I was, someone who could see beyond the stress, the work, and the exhaustion that the business had given me for way so many years. Someone who could see the possibilities for the business, because frankly, all I could see was horrible, horrible ball and chain. I just saw something that had worn me to the ground, ripped my life apart, and preventing me from having the one thing that I really wanted, the thing that I left corporate for, which was freedom. I saw a business that controlled me, a business that wasn't what I wanted, and it had to go. When we lost Becky last year, I cannot even begin to tell you the guilt I had for not being present enough for Becky, not just for Becky, but for all of my girls. And I don't mean Becky during her illness. I was totally present for that. But for the years I was too focused on my business, for the years I should have been making memories, not money. But of course, I can't change the past. And the guilt is something that I just have to learn to live with. It's something that I have to learn to work through. But the reality is, I walked away because I left it too late for me. Walking away was the only decision I could make, but it was totally the right decision. I want to flip this on its head for a second. If you are feeling like your business is taking over your life, If you're feeling like you're falling out of love with the excitement of your business, then now is the time for you to start making those changes. Any gut feelings that you're getting that something's not quite right, now is the time for you to start doing something about it. Don't do what I did. Don't assume that at some point it's going to get better, because it won't. It won't get better unless you make it better. If you're chasing financial milestones without a purpose, then ask yourself why. What is the money for? Will it make you happy? If not, stop chasing the money and start chasing the happiness. Now, I love money, but I'm not prepared to give up my life for money anymore. I want money to do the things I want to do, when I want to do them. And that means being strategic with what I want and why I want it. It also means being strategic with how I earn the money. Now, yes, of course, we have to work hard at times. If we're launching a new business or we're going through a period of doing something new within our business, then we have to work extra hard at those times. But that doesn't mean we have to sacrifice everything for it, especially our happiness. So my question to you is, what do you really want? And what are you prepared to sacrifice to get it? Because what I don't want you to do is do an Emma. I don't want you to leave it too late to fall in love with your business. So start right now. Get clear on what you want and why you want it, and then get intentional with what you do. And the final point is to make sure that you listen to those gut instincts, those niggles that tell you something is not quite right, as those niggles soon can take control of you and your business. Be happy, be in control, and most importantly, get intentional with what you want. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time.